Good afternoon and welcome to the Sustainable Materials Management Webinar Series, a joint effort between the National Recycling Coalition and the Pennsylvania Recycling Market Center. My name is Wayne Bowen and I'm the Program Manager for the Center and will serve as your moderator today. Before we get started with the presentation, we would like to extend a special thanks from Bob Hollis of the Mobius Network for providing the webinar management software for this series. Today's webinar topic is about producing successful conferences and trade shows. Today's presenters are Jerry Powell and Cara Bergeson from Resource Recycling, who I will introduce in a moment. Following their presentations, we will conduct a question and answer session. If you have a question or comment, please use the GoToWebinar dialog box located in the control panel on your screen. You may also use the dialog box to request assistance if you're experiencing technical difficulties during the webinar. Please note that an edited version of this webinar will be made available for viewing via YouTube links on the National Recycling Coalition and Pennsylvania Recycling Market Center websites. The presentation slides can also be obtained using the handout upload feature on your webinar control panel. And now I'd like to introduce our presenters. Jerry Powell is the president of Resource Recycling, Inc., a publishing and conference management firm. Resource Recycling is a sponsor of the eScrap Conference, as well as a publisher of 3 trade journals, Resource Recycling, Plastics Recycling Update, and eScrap News. Cara Bergeson is the conference director and producer at Resource Recycling, Inc. She has over 15 years of experience working with the meetings and event industry. And now I'm going to turn the program over to Jerry and Cara.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, well, and good afternoon. It's morning out here in Portland, Oregon.
Yeah.
My name is Jerry Powell, and my company, Resource Recycling, has for many, many years sponsored conferences. And so we own and produce a bunch of events. We'll have about, 3,500 attendees at our shows this year. And so we've made some substantial mistakes and some substantial successes in trying to figure out how to run these events. I'm blessed that I have Cara Bergeson join me. She's our conference top exec, and she and I have done, at least 30 conferences together. And both because of her skill set here at work, as well as trainings that she has, and she can maybe later give recommendations if some of you want to know which are the good trade groups to join to where we learn about what's happening in the meetings industry. She could provide that. But what we're going to do is go through showing some issues, especially about hotel management, selecting venues, and then we'll close with some helpful, a few little fun, helpful hints, and then we will provide separately a case study that you can go through that shows how a venue, a hotel, for instance, might choose or not choose to do business with you, and how you can use that knowledge to better position your RFP and your hotel bids to make a productive conference. So we'll turn to Cara. I do have just one apology, and that is the news isn't very good in our industry. The economic advantage has moved from you, the people putting on conferences, to the venues. The hotels have the power hand, and Carol will give some advice now about what that means. Cara?
So first, let's just take a brief look at what the state of the industry looks like right now. The 2018 projections, as Jerry mentioned, are not that exciting. Our expenses are growing anywhere from 2% nearly to 4%, where our budgets are only growing less than 1%. So we're having to do more with less money. As Jerry mentioned, it's still very much a seller's market. The hotels are definitely in control. Going into 2017, they were hoping that the supply of hotel and meeting space would catch up with the demand that's needed, but that did not actualize. There was new construction, but it was focused on boutique hotels and trendy new transient-focused hotels.
By transient hotels, we mean like a Marriott that takes in just 3 or 4 people here, or that businesswoman, that business person, and stays away from the group trade.
Yeah, so a lot of your tourist travel. So projections, record occupancy levels for the next 2 to 3 years, which for us, that means availability and pricing is going to remain a challenge. So with that, let's look at some key factors of how hotels view our business. So revenue management from a hotel standpoint is the art of predicting future demand over a particular time frame and employing a price strategy to maximize revenue per available room over that specific time period. So it's basically like looking for the best car spot at a busy shopping mall. You know, do you take the first one that you see, or do you take the chance and hoping you find a better spot? So some of the key things that hotels look at when they're looking at your RFP is what is your pattern? When do you arrive? When do you depart? So it's kind of like a puzzle. And so they're looking for puzzle pieces that are going to fit into what they already have booked and what they're trying to book. So if you have a Tuesday, Thursday pattern, but the hotel has openings Sunday to Wednesday and Wednesday to Sunday, your pattern is not going to fit into their puzzle. So
I'd interject. We keep a database on the attendance levels of state recycling conferences and have for, well, I don't think it's a decade, but at least about the last 8 years. It's interesting to note that some of the state associations have the guts to meet over the weekend. And yes, they might go to recreational properties, but that is one question that you might have to begin to ask yourself. Is our Tuesday, Thursday pattern the big hog in the middle of the week, which is going to result, according to Cara, into possible problems with hotels being jammed? Is that a barrier? Have you really ever polled your membership to see if they would, meet all the way into Friday afternoon or start a reception on Sunday evening? So consider arrival departure pattern as a price, as being a price determinant, and you might really reconsider your practices or your traditions and poll the membership to see if they are flexible.
Yeah, I ditto everything Jerry just said. Another thing is season. Are you looking to book in peak season, or you're going to save money if you can look at those shoulder seasons or completely off peak seasons? Also, if there's a specific hotel that you really want to be at, call them and ask them what their need dates are. Those are those empty puzzle pieces that they're looking for business, and you might be able to fit nicely in there. And that will give you some benefits when you're looking at concessions and stuff. Lead time, every hotel is different, every destination is different, but kind of the rule of thumb, if you're willing to be flexible and you're willing to take the chance, short-term bookings can offer a big reward. However, if it's a larger group and you don't have flexibility on your date or location, I highly recommend book as far out in the future as you possibly can and feel comfortable with, because of the supply and demand. There's much more demand on meeting space than there is supply.
And again, a lot of that is size related. Our firm is now looking at 2021 because some of the size of the shows. A conference with 100 might have a little more flexibility, not to book 3 and 4 years out, but wait and find those areas where a hotel all of a sudden has 3 empty days and is really eager to do a deal.
Transient demand on hotels is growing despite of whatever our economics map looks like right now for the future. People are still willing to travel and still willing to pay for traveling, which directly affects group business. So hotels are giving more rooms to transients because they are willing to pay a higher room rate than the group rate. So if you do book out in the future, that will play to your benefit as transient travel continues to improve. Rooms to space ratio, this is huge. Space hogs are going to have a hard time finding space because hotels don't want to be left with a bunch of empty rooms that they're unable to sell. to another group because you've taken up all the meeting space and they just don't have the transient people coming to book those empty rooms. So if you are a space hog, consider booking over a citywide event where the citywide is taking up a good portion of the hotel's room, but leaving all the meeting space open for you to take over.
So if you have a good-sized convention coming to your convention center, many of those hotels will make very good money, and they're part of the Convention Bureau's program. So they will rent out half their hotels, rooms, beds, to the convention. But now they have the other half of the hotel and all the ballroom empty. And so sometimes it sounds counterintuitive, but it's better to go to a city that's having a good-sized convention than it is to avoid it, because you may be able to pick up cheap ballrooms.
Mm-hmm. We do that often with our smallest show. We look for areas where we can book over a citywide. Also look at your setup and teardown days. Do you really need 2 or 3 days to set up, or can you cut that down to just 1 day of setup? That will help your room to space ratio as well. And I'll mention at the very end of the presentation, which we'll not go over today, but there is a case study and it gives you exactly how to calculate your rooms to space ratio. Food and beverage revenue. This is important. Don't overlook the value of your food events at a hotel. Hotels, when they're looking at your business, they have a targeted revenue number that they need to meet per hotel room. So your food and beverage plays into that.
One of the things to really think about is, what are your partners doing? You'll find, and I'll just use one company as an example. You might find Waste Management Incorporated might send 6 people to your show. Those 6 executives want to get together. You know, they said, while we're at the conference, let's have breakfast or something. Work carefully with people like that, so when the waste management executives have a business breakfast in the hotel restaurant, that the hotel knows they're there because of your show. You might even actually buy that breakfast and then have waste management pay you for the breakfast, so that the cash flow goes against your contractual requirement. And in conclusion, it's important that you remember who your partners, your exhibitors, your sponsors and everything are, and are they holding a private cocktail event, a little breakfast or whatever in the hotel. Get credit for that food and beverage.
Yeah, and that's a line item that you can include into your hotel contracts, that any affiliated group or sponsor that's holding a food and beverage function at the hotel, you get credit for that to meet your food and beverage minimum. Also, it may be appealing to hold a food and beverage event offsite, such as a reception or whatnot, because it might save you a few dollars on the actual food cost, but it's damaging your relationship with the hotel. So make sure that you weigh your pros and cons before taking an event offsite. Don't overlook the revenue that your attendees bring to the hotel when they spend money on room service, coffee shops, restaurants, and bars. That all plays into how a hotel views your total revenue contribution. This information is hard to track, especially if you're at a big hotel that has multiple groups going on. You don't know which attendee is purchasing what at a restaurant or not. But at the end of your event, always talk to your convention service manager to get input on what they think your attendees spent on the food and beverage outlets. Include that information in your RFP, because that helps bring value to your event. You bring value to a specific hotel when you do multiple bookings with them, as well as to a hotel chain. So you're going to get more benefits if you consistently use a Hyatt brand or a Hilton brand, or you constantly go to the same Marriott. So keep that in mind when you're looking at future dates.
They will give you advantage, but do recognize that there's 2 types. It's not true that Hilton Incorporated owns all the Hiltons. They own the big ones in big cities, but then there's franchisers. And so sometimes you also, like a big franchise chain in the Midwest, White, out of, I think, Indianapolis, you could also develop a relationship with a franchisor who might have 3 or 4 brands under its venue, under its list, and they would forward work with you and give you breaks if you stay with them. So loyalty works, and consider loyalty in your forward bookings.
And creating relationships with your sales managers, either at a specific hotel or within a brand. Reach out to your national sales managers, establish a relationship, because they will advocate for you, especially if a local hotel is borderline wanting to take your business or not. Your national sales rep can step in and help push them to your side. So those relationships are super important. And, you know, booking business, holding a conference, there's risk involved to all parties and stuff. So to help you guys out, when you do put out your RFP, I encourage you to put as much historical information in there as possible. Tell the hotel what you've spent on food and beverage in the past, what your room blocks look like, how much meeting space you've used, any other information that the hotel can use to see what your value is very helpful. If your RFP doesn't have this information in it, they may just throw it to the side because they have so many RFPs showing up at their desk every day. So again, in the case study that's at the end of this presentation that you guys can review on at your leisure, walks you through all of these key variables and how the hotel looks at it and ranks a piece of business. So there's some trends out there that I think everyone needs to be aware of. First of all, hotel pirates. These are these third-party companies, housing companies that are contacting our attendees, our potential attendees, not claiming, but they're implying that they're part of us, and that they're trying to book our attendees rooms through them so that they get a commission off of that. There's no true way of being able to stop these companies from doing this. So a few things that can help is make sure that you inform attendees that the only official way to book a room is through your conference website or directly with the hotel. Don't be fooled by these third parties pretending to be part of your staff. Let's see, also include in your hotel contracts that regardless of how a sleeping room was booked or at what rate, that you still will receive credit for that towards your room block minimum.
Sometimes when someone is booking very late and knows that the conference discount is now off, just merely calls the hotel books and forgets to say that they're with your organization. And so put into the contract that you have the right to compare their sleepover list for that night against your attendance list to make sure that a party who forgot to tell the hotel they were with you, they just booked as a transient, that's credited to you. The other thing I would really urge you on hotel pirates is, sadly, there have been cases where these parties really don't care. They're after your attendees' credit card information. So be aggressive against them and be aggressive at teaching your potential attendees. And the other one, just be honest, is you have to watch, and that's a big dilemma for my company, you have to watch out for having available your last year's attendee list. Even though it doesn't have email, they will get it and they will scavenge for emails and start marketing to your people. So you might want to carefully consider how you issue your attendee list and where it goes, because that's where these pirates get their data.
Yeah. Just a side note to help boost up your room block, let the hotel do an audit at the end of the conference. Send them your attendee list. Let them cross-reference with any rooms that were booked outside of your room block to see for these hotel pirates or like Jerry said, someone just called the hotel after the fact of the room block being closed. So you get credit for all of your attendees. Cancellation. We're seeing more and more hotels are going to cancel signed contracts because a bigger, better piece of business shows up on their desk, and it's more beneficial to them to cancel on a smaller group, pay whatever penalties might be written into the contract to take a bigger piece of business. There's not a whole lot of things you can do to protect yourself from that happening in the big picture, but there are things that you can do so you can make the most of it should that happen to you. Include details in your contract of if the hotel cancels on you, what will the hotel give you? What will they pay for? How will they help you relocate?
This is a sign of what we open with, and that is the economic power has moved from us, the buyer, to the venue, and the cancellation clauses are really on their side. And it sounds funny that they could sign an agreement to have you come to their hotel and then 6 months before cancel you and ship you and recommend you go down the freeway to the next hotel. It's scary.
It is scary. I just had a friend call me on Sunday, and a big hotel in Vegas canceled her event, and her event literally is 3 weeks away.
And I encourage you, we're going through a cycle because my firm has to put on conferences during hurricane season. I do encourage you to carefully work with and there's, and we can give you advice. There's insurance companies that specialize in meetings and events, is to get insurance on your cancellation clause because there could be an actual situation where they cancel you but have nowhere for you to go, and you don't have your annual conference, and you need insurance against that. So start thinking about looking at your meetings insurance contract now because of these problems.
Yeah. And along those same lines, make sure that you have a walk-in clause in your contracts. Hotels are starting to walk group business because transient business is willing to pay a higher room rate.
So in other words, you have $150 a night booking with your event, and yet a business person is willing to pay $225. The hotel is nearly full, so they pitch your customer down the street, pays for the room down the street, and takes a $75 a night advantage to have the transient fare come through. So walk clauses are also another contractual element that takes close diligence.
Yeah, and you can always ask to be a no-walk group. Some hotels will agree to that, but most likely they're not at this point because they want that flexibility. So in your walk clause, know exactly where and how far away and what transportation they're going to provide to make it as easy as possible on your attendees should they get walked. Safety and security is a new topic that, 10 years ago we didn't have to deal with as much, but now with the political tension, the potential of threats and violence, as well as extreme weather conditions, this is something that we need to pay more attention to, and we need to start looking at clauses that we can put into contracts that protect the meeting as a whole, our attendees, as well as the hotel and their staff.
For instance, our company, because we're a fly-in, most of our customers fly to our site, have an agreement if the TSA takes a red alert action of any time within the week preceding, and number two, 25% of inbound aircraft flights preceding the conference have been canceled due to some event, a terrible event, then we have special clauses where we don't have to meet the room block and the food and beverage commitment. However, that doesn't solve the other one of extreme weather.
So on a few occasions, we ended up holding a conference over an ice storm, or we came in right after Hurricane Irma. Climate change is happening, and we're seeing more and more extreme weather conditions, and they're happening randomly where, they're harder and harder to plan for. So meeting planners are looking to add what they're calling rain insurance, which basically is insurance to help protect you should these extreme situations happen. If you get a crazy snowstorm, ice storm, flooding, etc. These are two companies that I'm currently talking with and learning more about and stuff, and they've come recommended to me. So if you're looking for this type of insurance, I would start with these two companies. Another thing that I'm seeing in hotel contracts is they're going to try to require you to use their in-house audio visual service, or if they have a destination management company on site. So watch for that language that is restricting you to use their in-house providers. Make sure that your contract has clauses that you can use any outside vendor of your choice without penalty.
There's in nearly every good sized city in the United States are very aggressive small audiovisual companies. Those are those kids that we all went to high school who just love audiovisual sound, lights. They can many times beat what the hotel pricing is. There's also the option to seek those potential contracts, show that to the in-house, and all of a sudden, gee, the in-house vendor all of a sudden will cut their price. So remember, there's always options on vendors.
Yeah, with the exception, rigging is always going to have to be
Yes.
the in-house provider. Most likely, electricity as well is going to have to.
And that has to do with liability, and that's very
Yeah.
understanding. Not everybody should be stringing 240 volt power.
Yeah. So. Yeah. So then we just added a few helpful tips to just keep in mind.
We already talked about make sure if you're rigidly always the third week of March, maybe don't. You know, if you're always rigidly Tuesday, Thursday, maybe don't. You might get a price advantage. It is the case, and we see that. I know Indiana favors a specific hotel about every other year, and they go back to it. There are very good benefits to coming back to a hotel every other year, every third year. So I know Arkansas, a whole variety of people do, and I think it's a good strategy. Again, Cara was right. You need to count. One of the biggest things in shows is count. Have someone actually count how much food you left at the reception. You paid for it. Why did you have it produced if it wasn't gone? And if you're a conference that's always leaving expensive food at the end of the reception, you can then change your ordering. Or if you always run out at the start of the reception, it can help you the other way. So we always count how many people attend each session, how much food is consumed, and make sure your RFP is always better. You have to realize that the hotel really does want your business, and in many ways they have internally.
Please note that the recording of this webinar stopped before the presentation and Q&A session were completed. We are working on editing this recording to provide the completed presentation and the Q&A session. Please check back at a later date for the edited version. We apologize for any inconvenience. Thank you.